Hello, everybody. This is Chet Bolingbrook, the CRPG Addict, and today we're going to take a look at Swords and Sorcery, a 1978 game programmed on the PLATO educational system at the University of Illinois at Champaign-Urbana. Now, if you're not familiar with the PLATO system, it is the system on which the earliest known existing computer role-playing games were created. It was, of course, primarily an educational system. It stood for programmed logic for automated teaching operations, and it existed for a good decade before something monumental happened. That was the release of the first edition of Dungeons and Dragons in 1974. And of course, D&D became extraordinarily popular among college students, and almost immediately they got to thinking about how they could replicate the basic D&D experience on the computer. And in the 1970s, we saw a plethora of games released on the PLATO system, programmed by students. Many of them are lost because, it being an educational platform, the administrators didn't want games on it, and they thought the games were wasting space that could be devoted to educational lessons, so they deleted a lot of them until it occurred to them that students were learning something, programming things. Plus, the space became less dear as time went on. Now, many of these games continue to influence computer role-playing games today. The Dungeon and the Game of Dungeons, better known by their file names, Petit 5 and D&D, started an entire line of top-down, single-character dungeon crawls, I suppose, that are represented commercially in games like Telengard. More importantly, the multi-character first-person 3D games that started with Moria and continued with Oubliette and Avatar were commercialized as Wizardry. And, of course, Wizardry continues to influence us today through a lineage that includes the Bard's Tale, Might and Magic, Dungeon Master, and any number of other titles. Swords and Sorcery is probably the least well-known of the PLATO games that still survives, at least, because it's not related directly to any of these other computer role-playing games, although, as we're going to see, it does have a certain lineage to it. Now, if you want to play any of these games for yourself, you simply have to create an account at CyberOne, the website that currently maintains an emulator running the old PLATO system and the PLATO lessons. So cyberone.org is the place to go. You fill out a registration form, and you can start playing these excellent old computer role-playing games. I think you're going to find, like I did, that they're really impressive considering that they're the very first games that were created. But of course, PLATO was a very powerful tool, much more powerful than the microcomputers that were on the market at the time. And so it makes sense that the games that were programmed for it are going to be more powerful than the commercial software that was available around the same time. Now, Swords and Sorcery was programmed by Donald Gillies, but it owes its lineage to a game you might be familiar with or might have heard of called Star Trek, that was created in 1971 by Mike Mayfield, a high school senior in California. And he programmed this on a mainframe. In order to play it, they actually had to print each screen. So imagine that every time you make a move, you've got to print out a page with the way that the game map now looks. But he ultimately ported it to a bunch of other mainframes, and then it started getting published in books of code. And pretty much by the mid-1970s, you couldn't run into a mainframe anywhere, in the United States at least, that didn't have some variant of Star Trek on it. PLATO's got one. So it became extraordinarily popular. It's sort of a tactical game. It's not a role-playing game. But your goal in Star Trek is to kill 17 Klingon warbirds. And you do this in a galaxy that's 8 by 8 quadrants, so 64 quadrants, and each quadrant is 8 by 8 sectors. And that's what we're seeing here is one of the quadrants with the 8 by 8 sectors. And you would fly the ship through these different sectors and use your these asterisks or stars, and you would use your photon torpedoes and phasers to shoot the Klingon warbirds. And if you got too damaged, you could find one of the sectors or one of the quadrants that had a star base, and you could fly into the star base and get patched up. And that was the basic gameplay experience of Star Trek. Well, in the 1970s, some students decided they wanted the same experience in a fantasy game, and a gentleman named Jim Maeda created a game whose name has been lost, but the lesson name was Think 1.5, and then later there was a Think 2. And it was basically a fantasy version of Star Trek. Those games were deleted, unfortunately. They're among the lost games. But Don Gillies was inspired by them to create his own Swords and Sorcery, and that's the lineage of the game we're going to take a look at. I think you'll agree with me that in creating Swords and Sorcery, Don programmed enough role-playing elements in it that it's really a sort of a proto role-playing game and not just a tactical game the way that Star Trek was. So I'm logged in here to my CyberOne account. I'll go back a step here and enter the lesson name. And I'm going to type in Chester, my name, for my character's name. And that's the only character creation there is in this particular game. So I'm the 65th player playing this game right now. Not currently, but who has a character in the roster. And I'm going to receive my first mission by hitting Next. And the king, first of all, it gives me the option to define the size of the game. This is a bit different than Star Trek, where you always played in an 8x8 galaxy. Here I can define my own from 1 to 1 up to 500 or 100 by 100 rather, which would be a truly enormous world. Let's do something in the middle, 5 by 5, say. And so my mission is to chop down 110 trees. Not a terribly epic mission, but I'm just getting started. I'm a rookie, I got some menial labor to do before I get dragon slaying quests. There are 4 magic circles somewhere in the area that I've made, and the king's going to give me a sword. That's nice, because I otherwise, as we're going to see, have absolutely nothing. So I'm starting here in quadrant 4-2, which is the 4th column and the 2nd row from the bottom. And so you can see the line of trees on the right-hand side, the east side of the map, that demarcates the boundaries of the world that's been created here. And I can chop down those trees as part of my quest, but if I go off the screen after chopping down the tree, I'll forfeit the quest, because that takes you out of the game. So you can see my character is standing next to the boundary, and there's a couple of goblins down here south of me. There's a 3rd one over here. Now these goblins are deadly to me right now. I have no hit points. The hit points are the same thing as experience points in this game, and you start with 0. So I have no way to take even a single blow. In fact, even walking into a tree would kill me, and I've had plenty of deaths where I've done just that. So you have to be very, very careful at the beginning of the game and avoid monsters as much as possible. I do have a sword, but one swing isn't enough to kill these guys. And so if they get next to me and I try to kill them, they're going to get a retaliatory swing, and I'll die. So I need to try to avoid them. So my primary goal at the outset here isn't to start the mission and start chopping down trees. It's to find a way to kill these goblins and the other monsters that I'm going to face. And the best way to do that is through arrows. Although I could try to buy, as we're going to see, you can buy hit points or experience points directly. Either way, I need to either build up the character to be stronger so he can attack them in melee range, or I need to buy arrows so I can stay out of melee range and try to kill them at a distance and then earn my experience that way. To do either, I'm going to have to find treasure chests, and there aren't any on this opening map here, so I need to get off this map and find one that has chests. And so I leave the map by hitting M for move, and I have to specify a direction, and then I've got to specify how fast, which means basically how many squares do I want to take at once. And I can do 1, 2, or 3. If I have adrenaline, then I can do a 4th, but it will take away my adrenaline for every time I do that. So I'm just going to do 1 for now, since the monsters aren't any really close to me. And you can see I just moved 1 square to the north. Now, here's the thing. Having specified the direction and rate of movement, I will continue in that direction and at that rate every round, no matter what else I do. So if I just hit enter, it will move me another square to the north. If I swing my sword at this tree to get 110th of the way through my quest, well, it'll chop down the tree, but it will also then continue to move me north. And this is an artifact from that Star Trek game where you would specify a direction and how what your warp speed was, and then you just kept going in that direction until you turned or stopped. It obviously makes less sense with a character who's on foot to keep relentlessly going the same way, but that's what happens. And so until I realized that, I ended a lot of games running into trees and dying, but now I've got that. So on my next screen here, I've got a magic circle, the magic circles are basically the same thing as star bases from the Star Trek game. You're safe there. You can sell any jewels or gems that you found. You can buy things if you've got gold. But in my case, I have no real reason to go there because I don't have any gold and I have nothing to accomplish there. So I'm just going to keep moving north. You can see the enemies trying to reach me. They only get, I think they get 2 moves per every 3 rounds, or maybe 3 per every 4, or something like that. But anyway, I'll chop down this tree and this tree as I move past. But I'm not getting any luck with treasure chests. I get a change movement before I run into the tree above me. So I'm going to move to the west, and I'm going to move 3 moves at a time now because I don't want those goblins to catch up to me. There we go. There's some treasure chests, 2 of them on a map with 3 goblins. And the good news is they're on the other side of the chests. So I can at least get down to that first one. And now I'll stop moving and hit the T button to take the chest. And in the chest is a vial of adrenaline. So I'll take it, and I got 3 adrenalines now, but that's not really what I wanted. That's not going to help me very much. So I need to get to that other chest, but unfortunately, by the time I get down close to it, see that other goblin's right next to it there, and he's going to kill me if I get anywhere near him. So what I'm going to do is move back off the map to the east. Now, one of the things the game does is when you leave a map and you go back to it, it reconfigures the monsters and the treasure that were on the previous map. You still face the same number, but it just puts them in different places. The trees too, I think. And so now the chest is on the other side of this map, and I've started right next to a goblin. So if I do anything but move, he's gonna kill me. But I think I can pull this off. So if I move that direction by 3, I skip over him. 3 again. They can only move 1 at a time, so you got some advantage there. Now I'll move 2 to the west. Move 1 to the north. And I made it to the chest before they could reach me. And I'll hit T again to open up that chest, and I found 3 bags of gold. Well, that's enough for 1 arrow. So 3 whole bags of gold for 1 arrow. Well, that's the game's economy. And so I probably need more than that. So I'm going to keep exploring here. And if I get really lucky, I'll find arrows in the chest, and I won't have to go to a circle to buy them. Otherwise, I'll keep collecting gold until I have enough that it makes sense to buy arrows. But we'll check in again when I've managed to accomplish a little bit more. All right, well, since the pause, I managed to hit the mother lode. I actually died. I ran into a tree, and I mistook one of the enemies for me and thought I was in a different place, and so killed myself by accident. But when I restarted, well, I have a mission to cut down a lot more trees than before, but I did find a chest that had a whopping 126 arrows, and so that's an awful lot of arrows. It's going to last me for quite a while. It's a little bit too generous, really, but I'm not going to complain. So now that I've got them, what I need to do is, while I'm on a line with the enemies, I simply hit A for arrow and then aim at them, and the arrows kill them. They hit unfailingly, and they kill them in a single hit. And moreover, notice my arrows are +1 times 1. That means, I don't know if I can engineer it here or not, but yeah, there we are. that means that they should go through one guy and kill the guy on the other side of him, too. Here I have two guys. So I'll aim, and boom, both of them are gone. Pretty powerful arrows, huh? And so with these arrows, I mean, again, this was awfully generous so early in the game. It's really not going to be much effort at all to kill the other enemies, two more, on each screen, and thus give myself plenty of room and time to chop down the trees. Once you kill enemies on the screen, they remain dead. So now I can run around this screen and chop down those trees and probably accomplish, at least 15% of my quest here on this one screen. But the character does carry over from one quest to the next. So it makes sense for me to keep exploring the map and to open the rest of the treasure chests. There's one here on this map. Oh, and those guys are all lined up nicely for me. There goes two of them. There goes the third. Open that treasure chest. I found 5 bags of gold. So it makes sense for me to keep opening those chests. More importantly, every time I kill one of these enemies, I'm getting experience. I've got 108 experience now, which again is the same thing as about 108 hit points. Now that's only going to last for about 2 blows of one of these guys' swords, but I can probably keep out of range. And I have plenty of arrows to kill them with. That'll last me 2 or 3 more quests. And so I'll have plenty of time to develop a character in this mission, get the rest of the gold, get the rest of the treasure, before I chop down the trees and end the quest. Let's check in when I've done that. So something funny happened. I knew 121 arrows was a little bit too generous. That there must have been a screen artifact there. Actually, you can still see that one there on the screen. So the screen drawing just got messed up. It was actually only 21 arrows, and I've used them since then. But in doing so, I developed enough experience points that I feel comfortable defeating these guys in melee range. And so here I am right next to a goblin who's in front of a magic circle, and so to attack him, I simply have to hit the S key for the sword and then point in his direction, and it did kill him right away. I thought it wouldn't, but it did. And so now if I want to avoid damage, I simply need to make sure they come to me like that guy just did. Now I don't know if all the enemies will die in one hit, but I have 296 hit points at this point, so I'm not as afraid of them as I was before. Thug just died in one hit. Tree just went down. And I'll keep moving across the map. Now here I've just opened a treasure chest, and I have found a sword. And when I pick it up, you can see that it says it's a superior sword. Again, the screen drawing got messed up, so you can't see the one above it that says the regular sword. So the superior sword is obviously a better sword, and it's one of the several objects you can get, including a shield. You can get armor. You can find boots, a few other things, that are standard to the typical role-playing game. So this does have an inventory of sorts, and the inventory, as I said, carries between missions. Well, I finished exploring the maps, and I killed a lot of things and got up to 466 experience points. Opened a lot of chests. I found a second superior sword, but the first one, I think, broke, so I'm just still down to 1. And I got 2 adrenalines. I've got 5 gems that I can sell for more gold. And now it's time to get serious about my quest. I chopped down a lot of trees on the way to get here, but I've still got 54 to go. So here I go. Let's move along the border. I'm going to get that one. Chopping trees as I go. And it won't take me long to get the 45 I need at this point to win the game. Now that I've completed the quest, it's time to get out of here. You can leave by going off the border, but it's not the preferred way to do it. The king doesn't give you a bonus if you do it that way. The preferred way is to go into a magic circle here, and before I end it, I am going to sell my gems. So, wow, that's pretty good. I got over 1,000 gold pieces for those gems, which I can now invest in. I'll buy some more experience. Say, I'll spend 10 gold on 250 more experience. I will buy some arrows, definitely. I'll buy, say, 30 arrows. And I'll buy some adrenaline. Maybe 10 of those. And I still got plenty of gold left, so I'm heading to the next mission in good shape. I'm going to hit Q to end my quest. And here I get a congratulations, the king. I finished my mission, and the king has rewarded me with 25 bags of gold and an additional 19 experience points. And now I go back to the main screen, and I can retire my character to the roster or hit enter next and receive another mission. Again, it asks me about the size of the place I want to explore. And for the second mission, it's never about trees the second time. This time I have to kill 19 zombies. And there will be 2 magic circles in the 3x3 area that I just made. Now here, in addition, we got some tougher monsters here. And of course, since I made a smaller area, we've got to cram more people and more chests and more of everything into the few squares that I created. So we've got this guy here's a zombie, so that's what I need to kill. And then here's the goblins from before. But this guy is a werewolf. These are tough. They take a few melee hits to kill. Fortunately, I've still got arrows, but I've started in a tough spot because I'm right next to a goblin, and he can hit me, but I can't hit him. So I am going to move to the south by 1, and then I'm going to shoot a stop. Oh, shoot, I was hoping they wouldn't get another move. All right, well, we're going to have to slug this one out. I've got 734 hit points, so I'll use my sword to go left. Oh, see, the zombie didn't die in one hit. He's going to take 2. So left again. Now I'll go to that goblin. Now I'll move to the north and get that goblin. But I think I'll get out of here. Keep going to the north. Stop. And I'll shoot that werewolf. Didn't kill him. It's going to take 2 arrows for the werewolves. Okay, so now that zombie can hit me. This zombie can hit me, but I can't hit him, so he's not going to go anywhere. So you know what? I might as well just move off the map. Oh, God. I hit right into the front of the frying pan, into the fire, right next to another werewolf. There we go. Try to get away from these guys. There's a zombie to the north of me. I'll kill him. I thought it was... Oh, I hit sword, not arrow. Boy, I'm not doing so well. All right. Kill him. Kill him. Shoot an arrow at that werewolf. Change direction of movement. Shoot another arrow at that werewolf. Oh, I hit sword again. Okay, let's stop here. Shoot the zombie. It's not sword. Arrow the zombie to my south. Arrow the goblin. Arrow the zombie. Get out of here. Let's go back. Sword that zombie. Arrow that werewolf. Sword the werewolf. Grab the treasure. Sword the goblin. Arrow the zombie. Get in this little cul-de-sac and hole up here for a second until this werewolf comes into view, then we can arrow him. Oh. Finish him off with the sword. So fortunately, I'm earning so much experience from killing the werewolves that the hit point drains I'm getting for being stupid and not paying attention to what... I keep hitting S for shoot, but S is sword. There we go. So fortunately, I'm not getting punished too much for all the mistakes I'm making, because I keep earning enough experience to offset the loss in hit points. So I want to hit A for attack and S for shoot, when it's really A for arrow and S for sword. It's backwards from what I would find intuitively, but you get the idea. So I've killed several of the zombies I need to kill, and I just need to go around the rest of this map, killing the rest of them and picking up the rest of the treasure, and we'll check in when I've almost finished it. All right, I got my last zombie, and I'm using the magic circle to go back to the king, who's given me another 28 bags of gold and 266 experience points. So for the final map that I'll play for this game, let's try a real challenge. Because there's no way to win. You just keep getting more and more quests, getting more and more gold, more and more experience. But I'm going to do a map of only 1 by 1. So everything's on one map. That's actually quite tough, because there's less room to get away, to maneuver, to catch your breath, etc. And my mission is to kill a dragon. Now, because I only made it a 1 by 1 map, there's only one dragon to kill. If I'd made it a bigger area, then there would probably be more dragons, but they're not going to cram too many things on a single map. So here I've arrived. You can see I've got 1 magic square, I've got 3 treasure chests, I've got a goblin, 3 zombies, 2 goblins, 3 zombies, and that must be the dragon. Looks like kind of like a dog in the lower left-hand corner there. And I don't really know how strong dragons are, so this could be really easy, or this could be hard. So to start off, I think I'll dart over here to my east, to this corner, stop and kill that goblin. And I'm going to move 2 squares to the south and kill that zombie. Take that treasure. Back north 1 square. Let's see if the dragon is such a pushover I can get it with arrows. Oh, it's not going to help if I choose short, is it? So I just wasted a move, and now we get closer. It's arrow. Okay, I did quite 66 points of injury to him. Let's hit him again. For some reason he's not moving. Maybe he doesn't get very many moves. I killed him! So dragons aren't as hard as you might think. And I can finish off the rest of them with those arrows, and then head over and pick up these 2 treasure chests. And now I'm in really good shape heading into future games. As you can see, the game fundamentally gets too easy fairly quickly. Once you get a decent treasure haul, whether it's on the first map or the second map, then you can buy almost everything you need, and the enemies become a little bit too easy to kill. I mean, here I am killing dragons on my 3rd quest out. Go into the circle and finish it up. I get some more gold and experience. I wonder what my next quest will be if I have to kill a wizard this time around. Okay. And this map has a couple of spare dragons, plus 3 spare dragons, plus the wizard. So this ought to be a tough one. But anyway, you get the idea. You can just keep getting tougher and tougher quests, but your character has grown so much by the time you get each new quest that they actually are a little bit easy. It's the first quest that's always the most difficult. But that doesn't stop some people from playing the game somewhat obsessively. If we go into the lap here and look at the roster, whoever this Paley, this Chris Anderson, this 43 the Great, I mean, these people have all played. I mean, everybody on this page has played into the millions of experience points. So they really still continue to get something out of the game, mission after mission after mission. Lots of people in this roster with over 1 million experience points. Okay. So that's a look at swords and sorcery. Unlike the other Plato games here, this one did not have a lot of influence, and it's tough to see its influence on other computer role playing games. There is a line of games that started with 1980's The Wizard's Castle, and this one was written for the microcomputer, that also has you exploring in a grid like this. But the fundamental gameplay is a little bit different, and while I think that maybe The Wizard's Castle had got some inspiration from Star Trek, it really it doesn't work quite the same way despite the grid outlook, and so I don't think it's a direct descendant of Star Trek, and I don't think it was influenced by swords and sorcery. But it's still a relatively fun game to play, and has some interesting elements that we don't see very often in the modern era. I hope you enjoyed this quick tour, and I hope you stop into my blog, CRPG Addict at blogspot.com, in order to check out my articles on over 300 computer role-playing games from the 1970s into the 1990s currently, but eventually we'll get up to the modern day. This is Chet Bolingbrook. Thank you very much for joining me.